Okay, welcome back, boys and girls. So before we start on our poem today and read it together, I just want to give you a little bit of more of a background knowledge about what our poem is about. So the subject of the poem this lesson is poetry itself, right? The author makes a comparison in this poem between poets and another kind of professional. So we're gonna see what the speaker compares to the poet. Also, it's very interesting, and he uses imagery, and it's a very interesting poem. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, this is Constantly Risking Obscurity, number 15, by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Constantly risking obscurity and death whenever he performs above the heads of his audience, the poet, like an acrobat, climbs on rhyme to a high wire of his own making, and balancing on eye beams above sea of faces paces his way to the other side of day, performing entrechants, that's our core vocabulary word, and sleigh off foot tricks, and other high theatrics, all without mistaking anything for what it may not be, for he's a super realist who must perforce perceive taunt truth before taking of each stance or step in his supposed advance toward that still high perch where beauty stands and waits in gravity to her death defying leap. And he, a little Charlie Chaplin man, who may or may not catch her fair internal form, spread eagled in the empty air of existence. So, boys and girls, what is the speaker comparing poets to? What is he speaking to? What do you think this professional, this job or this career or this thing? What is he comparing it to poets? What is he comparing in this poem? Great job, boys and girls. So I hope that you're thinking about that. Also, take some time and read it silently to yourself. Also, make sure that you look for those core vocabulary words. You highlight, you define them, and look for those core vocabulary words, because they're not just words that we talk about at the beginning of our lesson. They're also words that you want to start implementing and incorporating into your vocabulary and your words that you use every day, and for your assignments that you complete with me and for your other subjects. So let's start looking at some of these what poetic devices that we talked about at the beginning of our lesson that we were going to be able to identify. So the first one we're going to talk about is structure. How does the poem look on the page, and why do you think that? So I want you to go ahead and answer that there. So what is the structure, and why? How does the poem look on the page? What do you think it looks like? And what's the structure? Also, personifications, we talked, is one of the poetic devices that we have that he uses in the poem. And this is the definition is to describe non-human things if they have been had human traits or characteristics. For example, the house shivered as snow fell on its roof, or the lighthouse winked at passing ships, or the wind sang through the open barn doors. So think about, as you go back, I want you to go back and read and start to identify ways in which he used personification in his poem. Also, we talked about a simile or an extended simile, and how he used that. So he says, the poet like an acrobat, right? So he's comparing a poet to an acrobat, right? An acrobat is someone, in the circus that does all these tricks and flips and all these cool, amazing, really dangerous and spontaneous things. So simile, we know that it's anytime you use a comparison using like or as. And in this case, he said the poet like an acrobat. So that's an example, right? Okay, so what type rope walkers do as their most basic trip. So what is their most basic task that they have? Also, what skills do performers on high wire need to succeed? And also, he writes that a poet performs above the head of his audience. What might this mean figuratively? Okay, so I want you to think about that, take some time and answer, and then we're going to come back and continue on with our lesson.